Good morning and welcome, fellow sovereigns. Please excuse my fluttering heartbeat. I feel like I've just been in a war zone. I just went to the doctor for 2 pieces of paper, a blood test and a disability parking certificate. Sitting in the waiting room, there's a waitress. There's the receptionist just over there. The doctor was nowhere to be seen, somewhere around the corner, and nobody else at all. I was the first there today. I was sitting there, and then I coughed, and my God, you would have thought a bomb had gone off. Suddenly the doctor rushed out and he wanted to give me a rat test, and I said, no, I don't need a rat test. I said, you know I'm not a rat. You should know better than anybody else about species. Anyway, then he wanted to put a mask on me, and I tried to explain all of the toxins in the mask, and I wasn't going to do that, and he was going on. I said, look, all of this is based on a theory that was created in 1543 by a guy with a very long German name, and I don't remember. And I said, the germ theory has been disproved so many times. It's not true. You don't infect anybody. Nobody can get anything from anyone else. Viruses don't exist. Oh, no, you got to follow the rules. You got to follow this. There's a sign on the door. Oh my God, the panic. I don't know. I guess I've been out of that world for so long. I've been on my own nice little bubble with other people who think the same as me. And suddenly thrust into this world of fear and worry and stress, and oh my God, the poor darlings. And I just feel really sorry for them. So anyway, we agreed at a distance that I would come home and we'd have a phone consultation, so he's safe. He's not getting my virus down the phone cord. And so we're now happy. But anyway, it was a shock, just going into that other world of fear and terror. And I know that if that had happened 4 years ago, and I'd sat in a waiting room with nobody else there and had a little cough, nothing would have happened. But in the last 4 years, the indoctrination has been so thorough, and it's indoctrinated those who should know better. Doctors who could possibly call themselves scientists, but they're not, because they're not doing the research. Anyway, I am becoming calmer. And it's just such a shock to be in another world when you least expect it. For 2 pieces of paper. Anyway, yesterday I was talking to 40 men, group of lovely men in Sherwood in Brisbane, and I learnt about the law of 1 to 3. It's going to say 3 to 1. So it's that hand. Okay. And so it all started, I think, back in November last year. So I've basically been sitting on my bum writing books. I've written 22, and I've got another 14, I think, ready to go in my computer. So soon I'll have published another lot. What's 22 and 14? 36. So I've been sitting on my bum doing that, mainly in cafes, but sometimes in my own office, sometimes in libraries. Anyway, I had decided it's time to get off my bum for all sorts of reasons. One is that the exercise is apparently really good for my knees, even though it's painful. So I committed, last November, to get off my bum and get out to the world and start talking. Because I'm a teacher by inclination. I love the environment of groups of people where we're all learning and teaching from each other. It's kind of I feel like I was born to do it. And I was also born to write, so I've been doing my writing thing, and now it's time to do the other half. So I just did that in my brain. And then soon after that, there was a chap, Brian, that I got to meet when we were doing a podcast of my London thriller. We had 38 voice actors turn that into a screenplay and a podcast. And so Brian was one of the main actors, voice actors. And so about a week after I made my declaration of getting out into the world and doing talks, Brian emailed me and said, look, Philip, for some reason your name came up in my brain. He said, I'd really love you to come and talk to us about writing and how you go about it, to my Rotary Club. So my always answer to everything is say yes and then worry about it later. So I just said yes, I'd love to do it. So I spoke to his Rotary Club, I forget now, it must have been at the end of December, and so that was a lot of fun, and sold several books from those contacts, but not that was about, it was just, that was nice. And one of the guys in that Rotary Club was a guy called Keith, who runs another group in Sherwood, a group of 40 men who meet every week, every Thursday morning. And Keith said, we'd love you to come along and speak to our group. So that's what I did yesterday. So from this little internal dialogue that I said to God, if you like, to the universe, it's time for me to get out and get, excuse me, I'm coughing. Better put your mask on. So yesterday I spoke to these wonderful men in Sherwood, and I was sharing stories about how I was writing and how I pull stories down from the universe, because to me there's all these ideas, they're just floating around, nobody owns them, and it's just up to us to tune in. And so, excuse me, there goes another cough, and probably 3 people are dead. Sorry, I shouldn't be blasé about it. It does worry some people, and my sympathies are with them. So I was explaining how there's a universe of ideas, there's a universe of inventions, a universe of possibilities floating around, and it's simply up to us and whatever facility we have decided to incarnate in this life. So I've incarnated as a writer and a teacher, other people have incarnated as chefs and cooks and food type people, and other people have incarnated as inventors, and others as engineers, as others as business people. And so whatever your genre, shall we say, your antenna will bring down ideas related to your topic, whatever it is. And so that's what happens to me. So there's all these stories, and it's just up to me to grab one a day, bring it down, excuse me, and it's just my job to put them onto paper, because there's all these stories calling to be brought down and written, and so people can enjoy them. And so my job is to be the channel, the conduit for those stories. Though I forget it, one's incarnate, one's carnate, I don't know. They're invisible, I'm not. So anyway, I bring them into visibility. And I was talking about other things, how the universe kind of works. And I was talking about how when we tune in, that which relates to that tuning comes to us. And I was asking if anybody had these experiences. And so Paul stood up, big chap, large white beard, very sort of friendly chap. And so he said, I have the law of 3 and 1. Is that right? This is backwards. The law of 3 to 1. So he said, what happens is, if you put out anger, put out 1 anger, you'll get back 3 angers. They come back to you. If you put out 1 kindness, you'll get back 3 kindnesses. So he told the story. He was in Caloundra a few years ago. Caloundra is a beach town about an hour north of Brisbane. And he was there, and there was a woman and getting her kids out of the sea, getting them changed out of their togs into their clothes and then into the car. Well, they didn't want to stop swimming, and so it was like herding cats. This poor woman was trying to organise these 4 children And as Paul said, I've got 5 children, I know what it's like. So he walked up to her and he said, do you want me to help? And he did. And she was so grateful because she was so rattled with these blooming kids. They didn't want to get out of the water. They were having fun. They didn't want to go home. So Paul helped marshal these unwilling kids into their clothes and into the car. And she took his phone number. He didn't know why, but that was the end of that. And so nothing happened. Well, nothing happened for about 6 months. When out of the blue, he got a phone call from this woman, and she said, my husband and I are going away at Christmas for 2 weeks to Sydney. So if your wife and you would like to stay at our house in Budrum, so Budrum's near the Sunshine Coast, about 20 minutes in from the beach, just up on the hill, beautiful, beautiful spot. She said, you're welcome to use our house as your holiday home. And Paul said, why? She said, because you made a difference that day. She said, I was just so grateful that somebody stepped up to help me with getting my kids in order. And so that's what happened. So Paul and his wife turned up at this house, beautiful house, on the hilltop, like 360 degrees view. Walked in, there was a frying pan on the stove, sausages, peeled, diced potato, everything ready to cook for the first meal, and enough food, enough food for 2 weeks. And ever since then, Paul and his wife and this woman and her husband, they've become firm friends. So as Paul said, one little kindness has turned into this amazing friendship and wonderful holidays. And so I guess that's what's happened to me. I didn't do a goodness, but I simply put out, this is what I want. That hand. This is confusing. So I put out 1 thought, and 3 have come back. So I got 2 speaking opportunities out of that. And then last night, 7 o'clock, I got a call from a woman in Melbourne who has this very large organisation asking me if I'd like to run my workshops, because I've been thinking about running my writing workshops, writing and personal development workshops. So kind of writing and life fit together. And asking me if I'd like to run my writing workshops. And I'd forgotten that I'd spoken to this woman, must have been 2 months ago, and I'd mentioned that I have run workshops. And so she, out of the blue, she just called me and would love me to run my workshops through her organisation. So she's got the technology, she's got the audience, she's got all the people ready, she's done the advertising, if you like, the promotion and everything else. I just turn up. I mean, that's just perfect. So, I don't know, I guess I had 1 thought, and that thought's turned into 3 actions. So, yeah, I got to speak to the Rotary, I got to speak to the Sherwood group, and now the workshops are going to be happening. And I found it really interesting that thing there can be anything. And for example, it can be worry. And I'm just reading a book at the moment, and I thought it was a novel, but it's not. It's a really interesting non-fiction book about how people deal with unexpected trauma, unexpected drama. And there's one of the story I read this morning was about a Louise who in 2002 was diagnosed with MS, which is a dreadful, I think it's a disease, affliction. So it's basically the nerves close down in the body, and it tends generally to do it successively, if you like. So it starts at the feet become paralysed, then the legs, the knees, the top of the legs, the hips, and so on. It works its way up the arms, and the last thing is the brain. So it kind of works its way up, and it's progressive. And once you've got it, you just kind of know that's what's going to happen. You're going to slowly, your body's going to close down. And so it's a very, very slow death sentence. Horrendous. And you don't know how long it's going to take. It could take 3 months. It could take 10 years. So Louise had the diagnosis, and of course the fear hit and all of that stuff. And very soon after that, her husband left. So who needs another drama? She said, obviously I do. And so that was another kind of, I'll call it a setback. That's an understatement. Suddenly she was on her own, having to deal with this growing paralysis that she was going to be experiencing. So that would have been 2004, I guess. And then 10 years later, she was involved in a hostage situation where a Muslim gunner with bombs on his back held up a group of people for 16 hours in Sydney. It was at a cafe, a chocolate cafe. I forgot the name. And so she was held up for 16 hours with her mother. And some of the hostages during that 16 hours, I mean, it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Some of them escaped, and she was about to escape. She could have, and then she remembered her mother was still there. So she crawled back and she fell to the floor, hoping he wouldn't shoot her in the back as she returned from the door. And then the gunman shot one woman. He shot more than one person, but he shot one woman, and that's when the police just crashed in. They burst through the door, smashed the doors, and there was gunfire and shrapnel. And this Louise was hit by quite a few pieces of shrapnel. And one was a huge piece of shrapnel, which created a hole in the bottom of her foot. And so she was in hospital for 3 months with shrapnel in many parts of her body, and some of it the doctors couldn't get out. They tried and tried, but it was so buried in her body. So here she is with MS, lost her husband, now on crutches because her legs are starting to not work. And so, of course, she's got a lot to worry about. But what she did was, that one, isn't it? She decided what she would do was reduce the worry. She didn't eliminate it because she just felt like you can't pretend it's not there. So what she did was she committed herself to 1 hour a day, of thinking about her MS and the worry. She committed to 1 hour, and that was it. Then the rest of the day was committed to other things. And she said something happened when I stopped the worry, or when I reduced it from 24 hours to 1. She said, it's like my MS didn't go away, but she said my gratitude, appreciation of life, of my mother and my house and my what health I have. She still had a job, and the friends she had and the colleagues she had at work and the enjoyment of her work. She said something happened, something blossomed when I cut that worry, and I committed it to 1 hour per day, and it had to be condensed there, and the rest of the day was committed to thanking God, thanking the universe, being grateful to everything that's around. And what she found was after some time she couldn't actually spend a whole hour thinking about her MS because she'd reduced it to 1 hour, and then the rest of the day was filled with joy and gratitude and just the practicalities of life. Somehow, even that 1 hour she couldn't fill with thinking about her dreadful future and the MS and da-da-da-da-da. And eventually it didn't go away, but she said probably 5 minutes a day now. I think about it. Okay, is there anything I need to prepare? So she's going to have to prepare herself for a new life sometime when her walking legs, her walking legs, what other sort of legs are there? When her legs absolutely fail, she's going to have to find other facilities, whatever. So she thinks about that for about 5 minutes, and then she said, I can't carry on. It's just... So it's almost like she's sent out one worrylessness day, and then they just keep growing. That 3 to 1. And people talk about, whatever we send out comes back tenfold, and that sounds too big a job for God. I quite like the 1 and 3, and it gives us this wonderful vision of whenever I send something out, I get 3 of these back to me. It's just a lovely, simple image. So, whatever we're sending out, let it be that which we wish to receive. And let it be that which we wish let it be that which we wish to receive threefold. So whatever we want 3 times, let it be that we send out. Silliness, joy, happiness, peace, connection, compassion, caring. All of those, what do we want in here? And that's what we wish to put out. So I wish you, as the lawnmower comes closer and gets noisier, I wish you 3 times the goodness that you're putting out. And I bless you and all who sail in her.